whispers crawl beneath the skin, a shadow's grin.
The Hound of the Hinterwoods. The rain fell not as water, but as a kind of cold, persistent ash, leaching the color from the world. Sir Gareth felt it seep through his woolen cloak and into the hair shirt beneath, where the coarse goat wool rasped against the old scars on his back. Each step was a prayer, each bruising stone on the forest path a bead on a rosary of his own making. He was a month into his penitent pilgrimage, walking from the sea to the mountains, seeking a shrine that promised nothing, not even absolution. Only the walking mattered, only the ache. The village appeared through the mist like a forgotten thought, a clutch of huddled roofs, smoke struggling against the damp. It had a name, he was sure, but names were for places people left. This was a place people were trapped. He could feel the silence as he approached, a thick, watchful thing. The usual curiosity of strangers was absent. Faces peered from behind shutters, pale and grim. He made for the only sign of life, a low, sod-roofed building that smelled of stale ale and wet dog. The tavern. Inside, the gloom was barely held at bay by a struggling fire. A few men sat hunched over cups, their talk dying as he entered. His stature, the old sword at his hip, the way he carried his weariness like armor, marked him as something other than a beggar. "I seek shelter," he said, his voice rough from disuse, "and work if any needs doing. I can pay in labor." The tavern keeper, a thin man with eyes like river stones, wiped a tankard with a grimy cloth. "Shelter, maybe. Work. The only work here is burying what's left of the sheep." One of the men at the table, a broad-shouldered farmer with knotted hands, spoke without looking up. "It's the Hound, the hellhound of the Blackwood, takes a ewe every other night, leaves naught but pieces, and prints bigger than a trencher." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Gareth felt an old, cold instinct stir, the simplicity of a beast, a problem of tooth and claw. For a moment, the gnawing guilt within him was overshadowed by the prospect of a tangible enemy. "I am a hunter," he said, and the title, though unearned in any holy sense, felt heavy on his tongue. "Show me where it struck last." They took him to a pasture on the village fringe, a miserable patch of mud and tufted grass. The remains of the sheep were not simply killed, they were unraveled. Gareth knelt, ignoring the cold seep of mud through his trousers. The prints were indeed massive, deep impressions in the soft earth, but they were strange. The pads were clear, the claws like daggers, but there was a blurred quality to the edges, as if the beast had no solid weight. And there was a smell, not of blood or rot, but of ozone, of a storm about to break. "Has anyone seen it?" he asked. The farmer shook his head, only heard it, a sound like breathing, but deeper, makes your bones feel thin. That night Gareth took his position at the pasture's edge, beneath a skeletal oak. The village had given him a rusty boar spear, its weight familiar and foreign. The hours bled into one another, measured by the drip of water from leaves and the slow ache in his knees. He prayed, but the words were empty rituals. His mind, left alone in the dark, wandered back to places he had sealed away. The scent of smoke, the sound of screaming that was not animal. Just before dawn, when the world was at its coldest and most silent, he heard it. It was not a growl, it was a vibration, a subsonic rumble that began in the pit of his stomach and climbed his spine. The air grew heavy, charged. He raised the spear, his breath fogging the air. And then he saw it. At the far end of the pasture, where the mist pooled thickest, a shape coalesced. It was vast, taller at the shoulder than a wolf had any right to be. Its form was of a darkness that drank the scant moonlight, not black but the color of a deep bruise of a long-extinguished fire. It was emaciated, ribs like the struts of a ruined ship, its hide stretched taut over a frame of pure hunger, and its eyes, they were not eyes but dying coals glowing with a dull, infernal light. The spectral hound turned its head. It looked directly at him. Gareth's blood turned to ice. His warrior's instinct screamed to charge to level the spear, but his limbs were locked. The beast did not snarl. It did not crouch to spring. It simply regarded him. There was an intelligence in that hellish gaze, a terrible, patient knowing. Then, as silently as it had come, it faded, not running but dissolving, the mist reclaiming its form until only the imprint of those terrible eyes remained in Gareth's vision. He did not move until full light grayed the sky. The villagers found him there, still kneeling in the mud, the spear lying unused beside him. "Did you see it?" the farmer asked, a desperate hope in his voice. "Yes," Gareth whispered, "I saw it." They took it for confirmation. They gave him food, a drier cloak, their gratitude a palpable, smothering thing. Gareth the disgraced knight had become Gareth the Hound Slayer. The lie was a new hair shirt, even more uncomfortable than the first. The next day he went into the Blackwood. The forest was a cathedral of gloom, ancient trees draped in moss, the ground a spongy mat of decay. He found the hound's trail easily. The huge, blurred prints led him not on a chase, but on a procession. They wound through gnarled roots and across chuckling streams, and then they led him to a clearing. In the center stood the blackened skeleton of a cottage. The thatch was long gone, the timbers charcoal fingers clawing at the sky. It was a quiet ruin, but to Gareth it was a screaming memory. He staggered back, leaning against a tree. The smell, gods, the smell was the same. Not the wet-ash smell of this old ruin, but the memory of thick, greasy smoke, of roasting thatch and other things. He saw not this peaceful, moss-grown wreck, but a thriving cottage in a different wood, in a different land. He saw the torches in his men's hands, heard his own voice, hoarse with false righteousness, giving the order. They had suspected the farmer of harboring rebels. He had harbored only a wife and 2 small children. Their cries had been worse than the crackle of the flames. A cold nose touched his hand. Gareth flinched, drawing his sword. The hound stood beside him, close enough to touch. He could see the detail of its spectral form, the individual ribs, the wisps of darkness that bled from its coat like smoke. It did not look at him. It looked at the cottage. Then it turned and paced slowly into the trees, glancing back once, as if waiting for him to follow. Numb, he followed. The trail led him to a small, overgrown cairn of stones, a shrine now desecrated. A crude idol of a forest spirit lay on its side, shattered. Coins and small offerings were scattered in the leaf litter. Another memory, sharp and sudden. A stone chapel in the highlands, its silver altar cloth stuffed into his saddlebag, the surprised, bleeding face of a priest who had tried to stop him. He had called it the spoils of war, a necessary cost. The church had called it sacrilege. His commander had called it initiative. The hound was there, sitting on its haunches beside the broken idol, those coal-fire eyes burning into him. "What are you?" Gareth breathed, his sword trembling in his hand. The beast merely blinked, a slow closing and opening of hellish lamps. Then it faded again. He returned to the village as dusk fell. The people read the failure on his face. The hopeful questions died in their throats. That night, another sheep was taken, this time from a pen right on the village edge. The fear curdled into suspicion. Their looks were no longer of gratitude, but of accusation. He was eating their food, sleeping in their barn, and the beast still fed. On the third day, he sought out the wise woman. She lived in a crooked hut at the forest's lip, where the cultivated land gave way to the wild. She was old, her face a map of wrinkles, but her eyes were the clear, sharp blue of a winter sky. "You hunt a ghost, knight," she said before he could speak. She stirred a pot over her fire, something that smelled of earth and bitter herbs. "It is a beast of flesh," he insisted, but the words were weak. "Is it?" She looked at him, and he felt peeled open. Some beasts are not of flesh, but of spirit. Legends from the old times speak of the CW circumflexen anon, the hounds of the otherworld. White as mist, with red ears, they are hunters of souls, guides for the dead. But what you describe, that is no clean hunter from the fairy mound. That is something else, a sin-eater made flesh, a hunger given form. It does not kill for meat, it kills to point. What has it come to eat, knight? The word struck him like a physical blow. Sin-eater. He had heard of the practice, a wretched soul who would take on the sins of the dead through ritual, consuming their spiritual corruption. A manifested conscience, a hunger for judgment. He left her hut, the old woman's gaze heavy on his back. The pieces, terrible and perfect, clicked into place. The hound's appearance only to him, its leading him to scenes mirroring his crimes, its lack of interest in the livestock only in him. It was not a beast from the Blackwood, it was a beast from his own past. He had not come to hunt it, it had been waiting for him, it had followed him home. The hunt changed. The hound no longer merely watched, it began to judge. As Gareth tracked it the next day, a rotten log bridge over a ravine gave way beneath him. It did not simply break, it collapsed as if the supports had been gnawed to nothing. He only saved himself by a desperate grab at a root. Looking up, he saw the hound on the far bank, watching him dangle over the rushing water. He saw the terrified faces of villagers as their rope bridge gave way during his retreat, sending them plunging into an icy gorge. He had cut it himself. The hound drove a stag towards him, a great panicked beast with hooves that could crush a man's skull. Gareth had to scramble up a tree to escape, listening to the enraged bellow below. He remembered stamping horses through a market square, the terror in the civilian's eyes, the crushing sound under hoof. The beast was forcing him to relive the terror he had caused. It was making him the victim of his own methods. The physical danger was real, but it was the memories that flayed him. His guilt, once a shapeless, howling thing inside him, now had form. It had teeth and breath and eyes that knew him to his rotten core. The final thread of the village's patience snapped with the death of the miller's boy. The child had not been attacked. There were no marks on his small body. He had been in the loft when the hound came to the mill. The deep, bone-shaking growl had vibrated through the very timbers. They found the boy curled in the corner, his eyes wide open, his heart stilled by pure, unadulterated fear. The village broke. Their grief was a cold, hard fury. Gareth returned at twilight to find a mob gathering in the square, their faces lit by torches that spat and hissed in the drizzle. They carried scythes, axes, hay forks, and they were looking at him. "Where is your beast, hunter?" the miller screamed, his voice raw with loss. "Where is this hound only you can see?" "It is here," Gareth said, his own voice hollow. "It is always here." For he could see it. The spectral hound stood between him and the mob, larger and more solid than ever before. It was no longer emaciated. It seemed fed, powerful, its darkness blotting out the torchlight behind it. It was herding the mob towards him, and herding him towards a fate. The mob advanced, driving him backwards through the village, up the path towards the small stone church that stood on a hillock. The graveyard was their theater, the tilted stones their audience. Gareth's back hit the cold iron of the churchyard gate. There was nowhere left to run. The hound stood before him, blocking any escape into the night. Behind it, the villagers formed a half-circle, their weapons raised. In the forefront, a fresh mound of earth marked the miller's boy's grave. The hound had cornered him not over livestock, but over this tiny, tragic monument. "He is a madman," a woman shouted, "or a warlock. He conjured the thing himself." "He brought this evil here," roared the millers. Gareth looked from their hate-contorted faces to the silent, looming specter. The hound stared at him, and in its fiery eyes he saw not malice but a terrible, solemn expectation. It was not here to kill him. A quick death by tooth and claw would be a mercy, an absolution he did not deserve. It was here to be seen, to make him seen. The judgment was not to be slain by the beast. It was to be seen as the beast by the innocent. The realization washed over him, cold and final. His pilgrimage, his hair shirt, his private prayers, they were all a coward's game. True penance was not private suffering. It was public truth. It was confession. With a sigh that seemed to come from the bottom of his soul, Sir Gareth let his sword fall. It landed with a dull thud on the wet grass. The mob hesitated, confused by the gesture. He did not address the hound. He turned to the villagers, to their torches and their tears and their righteous anger. "You are right," he said, and his voice, though quiet, carried in the hushed churchyard. "I did bring the beast here, but I did not conjure it. I forged it. Every sin, every cruelty, every moment of cowardice dressed as strength. It is my life given shape." He took a step forward, towards them, away from the spectral guardian. "I am not a hunter. I am a murderer. I put a village to the torch for a strategic advantage. Men, women, children, I listened to them burn. I looted a holy shrine and cut down a priest for a piece of silver cloth. I have led charges against unarmed folk. I have taken bread from the starving. I have broken oaths and trusts for gold and glory. I am the reason for your dead sheep. I am the fear that stopped your boy's heart. The hound is mine, my guilt, my sin-eater, and it has led me here to you for your judgment, not its own." The words poured out of him, a torrent of filth and shame he had carried for years. He named names, places, specific horrors. He did not speak as a knight, but as a broken, wretched man. With each confession, the spectral hound behind him seemed to grow less substantial, as if his words were unmaking it. The mob's fury did not abate, but it changed. It focused, crystallized. They saw not a mysterious evil, but a specific human monster. The miller raised his scythe. "Then you will hang for it, here, now." They surged forward, ropes in hand. Gareth did not resist. He closed his eyes, ready for the rough hemp, the final choke. A silent roar split the world. It was sound beyond hearing, a pressure wave of pure force that made the torches gutter and the villagers cry out, clapping hands to their ears. Gareth's eyes flew open. The hound had moved. It stood now between him and the advancing mob. It was fully real, a titan of shadow and ember, its size blocking the entire church gate. It lowered its massive head, and for the first time it bared teeth that were like shards of obsidian. It was not facing him. It was facing the mob. It was protecting him. The villagers staggered back, not seeing the beast but feeling its presence. The crushing dread, the ozone crackle, the bone-deep cold. They saw only Gareth, staring at empty space and a wall of palpable terror they could not cross. The hound turned its great head. It looked at Gareth one last time. In its eyes, the dying coals flickered, not with hellfire but with something else. Something like release, like a duty completed. Then it dissolved, not fading, but coming apart like smoke on a sharp wind. The oppressive weight lifted. The unnatural cold retreated. The torches flared back to normal life. Gareth stood alone in the churchyard, before a confused and frightened mob. The object of their hatred was gone, leaving only a weeping, broken man. The grand specter of his guilt had vanished, leaving behind the mundane, human consequence of his actions. The miller lowered his scythe, his arm trembling. The rage was still there, but the target had shifted, become complicated. Hanging a sobbing madman in the aftermath of a supernatural event felt less like justice and more like another kind of sin. "Go," the miller spat, the word thick with grief and disgust. "Get out of this place. If we see you again, we will not hesitate." Gareth did not look at them. He looked at the patch of mist where the Hound had been. He felt no relief. The private specter was gone, but in its place was the true human judgment in their eyes, a judgment he would carry with him forever. It was a heavier burden. He bent slowly and picked up his sword. He did not sheath it. He walked past the villagers, who parted for him in silence. He walked through the village, past houses whose shutters were now firmly closed. He walked onto the forest road, back into the rain that fell like ash. He was free of the Hound, but Sir Gareth was gone too, slain in that churchyard. What walked now was only a man, forever burdened by the memory of glowing coals in the dark, and the clearer, sharper memory of a fresh grave in the rain. His penance, he understood, was only just beginning. It would last as long as he drew breath, and it would be measured not in miles walked, but in the unflinching remembrance of the things he had done and the lives he had shattered. The Hinterwoods were behind him, but the Hound, in the end, had won. It had led its master to judgment.